Happy Friday, one and all. Isn't the weather glorious? We've got that Friday feeling. It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the push for a cashless society is an attack on people power. Cash is king. My Mark Meets guest is British tennis icon, former Wimbledon winner Virginia Wade, OBE. It might take a 10 the dark forces that would like to close down GBNews and deprive you of a voice. I'll be giving my first exclusive reaction to an astonishing attack on the channel, your channel, this week, and I'm coming out fighting. So, a busy 2 hours to come. We do have that Friday feeling. The weekend starts here. Put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's make it a night to remember. Lots to get through. My big opinions next, after the headlines with a good friend of mine, Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. And our top story this evening: the Met Police has named an 8-year-old girl killed after a Land Rover crashed into a Wimbledon prep school as Selena Lau. Selena's family has described her as an intelligent and cheeky girl, adored and loved by everyone. The force says another 8-year-old girl and a 40-year-old woman remain in a life-threatening condition in hospital following the incident yesterday. The driver, a 46-year-old woman arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving, has been bailed pending further inquiries. In international news, the United States has agreed to send controversial cluster munitions to Ukraine. Banned by more than 100 countries, they can pose a danger for decades after a conflict ends. A White House spokesman said they had weighed up the potential harm to Ukrainian civilians from unexploded ordnance, compared to the threat posed by Putin's invasion. Ukraine says receiving the weapons will have an extraordinary psycho-emotional impact on Russian forces. A gunman who killed a beautician outside a pub in Merseyside on Christmas Eve has been sentenced to life and will serve a minimum of 48 years for her murder. 26-year-old Ellie Edwards was killed by Connor Chapman outside the Lighthouse pub in the Wirral last year. The 23-year-old fired 12 shots from a submachine gun, injuring several others before fleeing the scene. Chapman was found guilty after a 3.5-week trial at Liverpool Crown Court. A man who killed a mother and her 2 young daughters by setting fire to their flat in Nottingham has been jailed for life and will serve a minimum term of 44 years. 31-year-old Jamie Barrow was found guilty of murdering his neighbour, Fatoumata Haidara, and her daughters, Fatima and Naima, in Clifton last year. The court heard that he poured petrol through their letterbox before setting it alight and watching the fire take hold. Abubakar Drama, husband of Fatoumata, spoke after sentencing.
Today is not a happy day for us. Barrow's sentence does not bring them back. However, justice has been done, and he will never be able to inflict the pain he has caused our family on anyone else.
And finally, more than 300 people were intercepted in small boats in the English Channel in the early hours of this morning. Now, it's the first set of crossings in 7 days following poor weather. GB News understands that the boats pushed off from a 60-mile stretch of the French coastline from Dunkirk to Boulogne. It brings the total number of crossings so far this year to over 11,700. On TV, online, on DAB+ radio and on TuneIn 2, this is GB News. Back now to Mark Dolan.
Thanks, Ray. Happy Friday, one and all. Isn't the weather fantastic? Have you had a drink yet? Who could blame you? Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the push for a cashless society is an attack on people power. Cash is king. In the big story, I'll be meeting the maverick celebrity chef who's banned vegans from his restaurants. Find out why shortly. My Mark Meets guest is British tennis icon, former Wimbledon winner Virginia Wade, OBE. In my take at 10, the dark forces that would like to close down GB News and deprive you of a voice. I'll be giving my first exclusive reaction to an astonishing attack on the channel this week. And I'm coming out fighting. That's at 10. You won't want to miss it. As they blight our great cities, should gang members be forced to do national service or get a proper job? I'll be asking tonight's newsmaker, no-nonsense, self-made entrepreneur, a man that left school at 15 with no qualifications, Charlie Mullins, OBE. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from 10:30 sharp, with three top pundits who haven't been told what to say, who aren't fake, and who don't follow the script. Tonight, Emma Wolf, Ingrid Tarrant, and oh my God, strap yourselves in, Jerry Hayes. Tonight, I'll be asking the pundits, were the authorities wrong to paint over a Mickey Mouse mural at an asylum centre? Is the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, right that universities should be fined if students get offended? And how about this? Are microwaves destroying the art of British cooking? Let me know your thoughts. mark@gbnews.com. That's the email for the whole of the show. And this programme has a strict golden rule. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Lots to get through, including my take at 10, the people that want to close down GB News. That's in an hour, but we start with my big opinion. Some months ago, it was revealed a small number of Starbucks branches were going cashless. I nearly spat my coffee out. They're not the only ones, of course. This is becoming the norm, with more and more businesses now refusing notes and coins, which is why GB News have proudly launched a new campaign, Don't Kill Cash. If you like, you can sign the petition. It's on the website at gbnews.com. Now, some people will welcome this new way of paying, this modern way of paying. It may speed up service at the counter so you can get your hands on that first latte of the day all the more quickly. Look, I'm happy to pay with my phone or contactless, but only where cash is still an option too. But this promise of a convenient experience via cashless payments is fool's gold. It's time to wake up and smell the coffee. This move by companies like Starbucks may look innocent on the face of it, but there are potential dark forces at play. I fear this is part of a wider campaign at government and corporate level to kill cash altogether. And I fear it's about control. As we saw with COVID measures, including lockdowns, masking and vaccine mandates, the push for a cashless society is, in my view, an attack on people power. If you have cash, your spending habits cannot be traced and your funds cannot be frozen in the way that they can be with a digital currency. Don't forget Tin Pot dictator Justin Trudeau, Canada's tyrannical premier, who froze the bank accounts of truckers who were protesting vaccine mandates. He couldn't have done that with cash. In terms of a cashless society, all roads lead to China. It's the worst-case scenario, the thick end of the wedge. Chinese citizens are part of what's called a social credit system, in which people's money is controlled digitally by the government. They have virtual money in their virtual bank accounts, access to which is linked to good behaviour. And with facial recognition cameras everywhere, the public can lose access to their money for the most minor indiscretion. For example, if someone is spotted littering or walking home drunk, not being up to date with their vaccines, or guilty of some other perceived crime, this fully digitised system will punish them immediately by stopping them paying for goods in the supermarket or from buying a train ticket. Welcome to hell. With a cashless society, the control is transferred from the people to corporations and the state. And in a cashless society, how can you give your nephew a tenner for their birthday or leave a couple of pound coins for that waiter or waitress that served you so nicely in a cafe? How can you help out a homeless person that needs a few quid to get by? What about the wonderful informality of a retired pensioner cleaning your windows or doing a bit of gardening and receiving a crisp £20 note as a thank you? A cashless society will spell the end of the informal, discretionary economy. Cash is human. Cashless is inhuman. Come rain or shine, if you've got some cash on you, you're secure. You're the master of your own destiny, which, of course, increasingly, our leaders don't like. We saw our personal autonomy challenged by lockdowns, stopping you from leaving your house, going to work, or deciding who you see. We saw bodily autonomy attacked by vaccine mandates. And if we allow a cashless society to happen, that will be the end of your financial autonomy as well. Cash is king, always has been, always will. Beware the outlets offering the snake oil convenience of cashless. They can hiss off. And fight this at every turn. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. Well, folks, your reaction to that, Mark at GBNews.com. I'll get to your emails shortly. Reacting to my big opinion, my top pundits tonight, author and broadcaster Emma Wolf, the busiest woman in showbiz. TV personality and professional maverick Ingrid Tarrant.
Yeah.
Oh.
And also, well-heeled and hirsute barrister and former Conservative MP and 90s TV legend, and by the way, 2023 TV legend as well, Jerry Hayes. He's got it back. He's made the souffle rise twice. And Jerry, whilst I've got your attention...
Not at my age.
Listen, I'm not a... That's not what I've heard. I'm no Luddite. I pay for goods with my phone and with contactless card. It is convenient. But it's a deal breaker for me that the cash option is always available.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't use cash. But what about the people...
Is that because you're a tightwad?
No, it's just I don't since COVID. I just don't use it. But what about the poor big issue sellers? Where do they get paid from? It's really, really tricky. And it is about control, I think, because people know where you are. Everywhere you move in London, and there's good points and bad points, there's CCTV. From the moment I come out of the studio, to the moment I walk into the station, to the moment I get in the tube, to the moment I get in the bus, people know exactly where I am.
And now they'll know what you're spending and on what.
Well, obviously too much.
But what is it's probably odd bins, isn't it?
Odd bins or majestical.
You're propping up their share price, let me tell you.
Absolutely.
But we can joke about it, but I mean, you're a top lawyer, and from a civil liberties point of view, this is certainly a concern, isn't it?
Well, it goes further than that. What about pensioners? Lots of people, I still know, keep their cash in a jar. Yeah. They don't approve of banks, and this is how they pay the money out, something here for there, something here for there. And they're used to picking up their pensions, not on a card, but in cash. So I think this is not a good idea. Whether the government can intervene or not, I don't know. But I agree with the campaign that this channel is doing.
Ingrid, your reaction to our campaign to not kill the cash?
I've signed it, and I have emailed my family, my friends. I've told them to spread it far and wide. You're doing very well. The numbers are going up.
Well, that's right. I think it's over 100,000 signatories now, and we seem to have touched a nerve. Why would that be?
Because exactly as you say, it is about control. And this was the plan. So the pandemic was a perfect time to start rolling it out. We won't take cash because you don't want to touch it, because you might spread the disease through touch and so on.
Which, of course, wasn't rooted in the science.
Exactly, it wasn't. But people believed it, and so they used credit cards and did that. And then it became quite normal. And I'm like you. I do use credit cards, especially if it's like a large amount of money. I don't be carrying a large amount of cash around with me. But then you've got to look at the bigger picture. We've all had the threat of power cuts, which we didn't have last year, but we could have this year because they still talk about it. What happens then? So you're in a supermarket and you go to pay for your food and you can't, because they can't process your payment. Everything, you can't go to the... You can't do anything. It'll paralyse, not just you, but actually the whole country.
But you've got to get it out of an ATM.
You got to, exactly.
And there's a camera on an ATM.
No.
Whoa.
The thing is, now you're talking about getting out cash.
Yeah.
If you don't have cash and they don't allow you to have cash...
But you've got to get it from somewhere.
No, it's in your bank. It's all controlled in your bank.
No,
and then what about the hackers and the fraudsters?
Yeah, well, that is another concern. I mean, Emma, is this a conspiracy theory? Are we overreacting? Are we all Luddites in relation to cashless society?
No, I think if anyone's a Luddite here, I am. I don't want to use my phone. I do, of course, I use contactless all the time, constantly. I rarely use cash, rarely have cash on me. I don't want Google Pay or whatever it is on my phone, so I don't want all of that. The minute you lose your phone, you've lost everything. I mean, you literally... So I do still use a card.
We've also seen, haven't we, the likes of PayPal stopping on closing the accounts of organisations like Us for Them, which is a pressure group speaking up for children.
And various individuals.
Because it doesn't, you know, challenge the COVID narrative.
Yeah.
So these financial
And one of the
firms
banks
have
that I'm
abused-
with is now cancelling the accounts of gender critical, or people that aren't you know, I mean, I don't want my bank judging me on my political views, or anyone else's for that matter. That's not what a bank does. What I'm really concerned about, as well as the more sinister aspects that you guys mention and the control aspect, I'm just really concerned about the people who are being shut out. You have a lot of older people who are not online. Already they're shut out of so much activity. Already the bargains, all of that stuff, they can't buy online. The minute you start making a cashless society, you have people who literally cannot go and buy goods. As you say, you can't put a £5 or a tenner in your kid's card. You can't give a couple of quid to a homeless person outside a supermarket. You can't give some money to a waitress. So many people. And also, I know older people who like to go in the supermarket. They will always go to a till and they have a few words with another human being. And that's a lovely thing. It's human, as you say.
And what about
that
this
interaction?
We talked about how this places control in the hands of the authorities and the banks, who this week we've seen have abused their power. No explanation as to why Nigel Farage's account has been closed.
it's appalling.
As one example.
Appalling.
But also, just from a very, very domestic point of view, for individuals, a lot of people find that it's very easy to overspend on a credit card.
A lot of people budget. A lot of people, like you say, pensioners, but also families, want to have a budget. They want to know that amount of money...
It's so easy to overspend. If you've got hard cash, you can
I really struggle to explain to my 2-year-old what cash is, what money is, because he's really almost never seen it.
Your 2-year-old will never see it.
He will...
And when the
I
old
show him coins and he doesn't
die,
understand that you pay for things. He
when the
just
old
sees me waving a card.
It's like
died
online
out.
gambling, which is a disgrace, and I think it should be banned.
Right.
I'm not a believer in banning things.
The money is
They never see it.
That's the problem
It's
with
an
the cashless
abstract
society. If you go to the pub, back in the day when I was a student, I went to the pub, and when I'd run out of cash, it was time to go home. That doesn't happen with a credit card, does it?
It was time to go home way before that, Mark.
Let's be honest, I paid a price. If you want to get involved, grab your phone and scan this particular QR code. Only if you agree with the campaign, by the way. So what you can do is if you get your phone out and if you hold your camera up to that particular image, then obviously you get to participate. GBnews.com is also where you'll find the petition. gbnews.com/cash. Back to me, please, Daryl, if you can. And let me also say that there are plenty of people that love the convenience of a digital way of paying, that it's quick. Many would argue it's more secure as well. So it's all about opinions. What's yours? Mark at gbnews.com. Coming up in the big story, I'll be meeting the maverick celebrity chef who's banned vegans from his restaurant. Find out why shortly.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A sunny and hot weekend at first for some, before the inevitable thundery breakdown and much fresher conditions arrive from the Atlantic. We've got a couple of areas of low pressure spinning out to the west of the UK. They're helping to draw up this increased heat and humidity before they send some weather fronts in, and we see this thundery breakdown later Saturday and into Sunday. But before that happens, a clear and dry night for many. We will see the cloud thicken across Wales and the southwest, and some showers will push into Devon and Cornwall by dawn. But it's a muggy night wherever you are, 17, 18, 19 Celsius fairly widely. Even in the north of Scotland, mid-teens are possible. But a fine start for Scotland and for much of England first thing Saturday. Sunny skies, temperatures shooting up, but the showers in the southwest will quickly push into central areas, developing into an intense area of thundery rain by the afternoon, with the risk of localised flooding, large hail and frequent lightning, particularly towards the Midlands into northern England and southern Scotland later. But ahead of that rain Could reach the low 30s in East Anglia. Much fresher conditions arrive by the start of Sunday. Any thundery rain clearing for the north of Scotland, but further spells of wet weather likely to brush past southeast England before some heavy showers and thunderstorms develop across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest into the afternoon. We keep the showers and some thunderstorms into the start of next week, but it also turns cooler.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome back. The emails are coming in thick and fast. Mark at gbnews.com. I believe that a cashless society is a war on people power. John says, tell your panel to stop talking about older people as though we're a homogenous group. I'm 77, says John, and highly tech aware. Elizabeth says Jerry can't have ever given money to the big issue. If he had, he'd know the sellers have tiny card machines. Annie says partially sighted people cannot use cards as they cannot see the numbers, and they should be able to be independent and not have to be accompanied to do their shopping. Also, Elaine says disabled people need to be able to use cash. They would be shut out of society without cash, says Elaine. And Elaine adds a couple of kisses on the email. Elaine, straight back at you. Keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.com. It's time now for the big story. And a chef has banned vegans from his restaurant after being criticised by customers for the lack of plant-based options. In response to this, animal rights activists stormed his restaurant in a fiery protest last week. Well, I'm delighted to say that the restaurant owner, John Mountain, joins me now live from Down Under. John, thanks so much for getting up to join us. Great to have you on the programme. Why did you go so far as to ban the vegans?
Good morning, Mark. Thanks very much for having me on at 4 o'clock in the morning over here in sunny Australia. How and why did I ban them? Well, look, we had a customer that requested a vegan meal, and this was 3 weeks in advance of when she was due to come in. So, oh, yeah, no problem. I, private message back, yes, sure. What would you like me to do? What's your favorite dish? That's what I actually said to her, Mark. And she said, oh, I love gnocchi, I love risotto. Oh, easy, no problem. Easy done. We look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks' time. The problem was exactly that, Mark. 3 weeks later, I'd forgotten all about it. Well, I didn't forget all about it, but I was just too busy. I had an outdoor catering event, which was the first one that I've ever done in my own little business. And it was just too much. I couldn't do it. I forgot to tell my other guys. It was my fault. That's exactly what happened. It was my fault. So on the evening, Mark, she didn't get what we promised her. That's what sparked off the problem.
I mean, is it your experience with other diners that vegans are a pain in the arse?
Terrible thing to say, but look, I've been in kitchens now for almost 30 years, and when we're in kitchens and working for some of the best chefs in the world, I've been really fortunate to work for some real great culinary gods out there. When we get a call from the maitre d' or the restaurant manager saying, chef, sorry, there's a vegan on table 9, your soul just drops a little. You just empty a little and think, what can we do? It's destroying. It is destroying because it's not what I was trained in, Mark. I wasn't trained to use any of these plant-based products. It doesn't mean that I can't, but it's just something that I prefer not to, It's my choice. My body, my choice.
Do you consider vegan food to be proper cuisine?
Vegan food can be proper cuisine. Look, there's one of the best chefs in the world, a chap called Daniel Humm, who has 11 Madison Park. He's a phenomenal cook, a 3-star Michelin chef. So yeah, it can be. Look, you can be creative with a zucchini. Oh, you lot call it courgette now, don't you?
Listen, when you said you can be creative with a zucchini, I think you'd neglected to notice it's a family show. But John, we'll gloss over that. What about these vegan activists? Have they been aggressive with you? What's the pushback been like?
Mark, the response has been horrific from the activist side of it, but I've realized that I'm quite proud in a way of the vegans standing in solidarity. I think it's quite warming that they do at least stand together and band together. They recently have just written a song about me and a video and the whole lot. I think it's quite warming, to be honest. They may be the minority, but they're doing a really good job of standing together. Have they been violent? Absolutely. When they came in, the problem is, Mark, look, this particular person, known as Trasher Peterson, has stormed lots of buildings over here in Western Australia. She's gone into Louis Vuitton, she's going to KFC, and she causes havoc. But the thing is, Mark, and I pre-warned her, if you want to come into my business, it is my business. I am here to protect my customers, my staff, and my building, and that's exactly what I did. So yeah, when they stormed in, they were picked up and thrown right out. I didn't want to throw the females out without being rude. That's a touchy subject, but I went straight for the boy.
I can't believe they attacked you. I'm amazed the vegans had the energy. Briefly, John, can I ask you what you think about the future of food? Do you think that we'll all be plant-based in 50 years' time?
We are no way going to be plant-based in 50 years' time. Veganism will increase. We're now 2% of the global population. There's about 8 million vegans, but the majority of those are peaceful, loving, nice, a lot of Indians. But there's no way. Yeah, it'll catch on, but it's not forever.
John, it's been a thrill to have you on the show. Thank you so much for staying up for us. I know you're a top celebrity chef, and also your restaurant looks absolutely stunning, and may I say, very shiny and clean.
Thank you, sir. We like to keep clean.
Always. Catch up again soon. John Mountain there, who is a top restaurateur down under, who has faced off against the vegans. Let me say, by the way, that I've got loads of vegan viewers and listeners, and you're all gorgeous. Listen, what is the credo? What is the philosophy of Mark Dolan tonight? It's all about personal choice. What you choose to put on your plate is in your gift and no one else's. Moving on to our next story, and vicars have urged the Church of England to scrap wedding fees in order to encourage couples to get married. Currently, it costs couples around £560 if they marry away from home and £512 to marry in their own parish. So, should these costs go altogether so more people tie the knot? Let's get the views of Father Felix Smith. Father Felix, thank you for joining us on a Friday night. We both know that marriage is a good thing and it's a blessing. Should we encourage it with free weddings?
Well, that's the idea that's being put forward by the Diocese of Blackburn for General Synod, which is coming up on Tuesday. And the idea is that if you lower or you scrap the fees for weddings, then suddenly lots of couples will be wanting to come forward and be married. But I'm not sure really that that's going to happen. As if couples are coming in, they're looking at the fees and they're thinking, well, shall I go for a church wedding or shall I go for a registry office, and one costs more than the other? I think if they want to get married in a church, then they know they want to get married in the church. And I think the price isn't going to make a huge amount of difference to that. They'll know they want to get married in a church because they have a connection to a church, they have a personal faith, or they've got an idea of what a church wedding looks like, and therefore they'll want to be involved in that. You know, fewer couples are getting married in general. You know, we know that from across society. So I think this idea that suddenly if we lower the fees or we scrap the fees completely, suddenly couples will be flocking to get married, I think is just not likely to happen. We've had fewer baptisms over time as well, you know, the rise of secularism and so on. And I think, you know, that's not been to do with cost. They've always been free. So, yeah, I think this idea that suddenly couples will come flocking to the church because weddings are cheaper or free, I think is very unlikely.
And of course, hard-pressed parish priests do need the cash, don't they?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're a very poor parish where we are. We're growing in numbers, but financially it's still always very difficult. And we've got, of course, bills to pay and everything else. I think probably last year we made about £2,500 from wedding fees. It's not a huge amount, but it does make a difference. And it's often the smallest and the prettiest churches that are bringing in fees for weddings that wouldn't be making those fees from other places, perhaps. And if we scrap those fees, who's going to pay for the heating and the lighting and, you know, the organist and all those sort of things that go into it? You know, who's going to plug that gap that will really be missing from the fees? Apparently, you know, the diocese, that's one suggestion, dioceses might be able to come together and sort of plug that gap. But, you know, they've not really been very quick to do that in the past financially. So it seems unlikely to me.
Finally, Father Felix, as you well know, you can find love on your smartphone, which is why Mrs. Dolan locks this one. But do you wonder whether the institution of marriage will survive all of this modernity and all of the freedom at our disposal?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult thing. Like we said, you know, fewer and fewer couples are getting married, and it's for other reasons rather than just to do with finance. I mean, I've been in ministry for 10 years now, and I've only ever had one couple come and say, well, you know, this looks very expensive to me. I think we might have to wait. Other couples, I think, actually, when they come, they say, you know what, this is incredibly cheap, because the average cost for a wedding is about £17,000. To spend £500 on a church service is hardly anything. Most of them are spending more on photography or other items rather than the service itself. And, you know, hotels are offering packages for £4,000 or £5,000. And so for us to charge £500, I don't think makes a huge difference. I think you're right in that it's other factors that are leading to fewer and fewer weddings happening sort of across the country in churches and outside churches as well.
Father Felix, next time I get married, you've got the gig.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Father Felix Smith, thank you so much for joining us. There you go. Those weddings are worth the cash, and we know how local parishes are struggling, and I'm sure they would miss that £500. Coming up next with the pundits, were the authorities wrong to paint over a Mickey Mouse mural at an asylum centre? Is the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, right that universities should be fined if students get offended? And how about this one? Are microwaves destroying the art of great British cooking? Plus the results of our Twitter poll. Are vegans a nuisance? We'll bring you the results of that next. Welcome back to the show. And now, listen, let me tell you, tennis legend Virginia Wade. Famously, she won Wimbledon in 1977. She's with me in just a couple of minutes' time. What's it like to win Wimbledon? But earlier, we asked you on Twitter, as a celebrity chef bans them from his restaurant, are vegans a nuisance? The results are in. Oh, dear. 83% say yes and 17% say no. Reacting to the big stories of the day, my pundits tonight.
I'll get my jacket.
Oh, dear. You're out of here. Are you a vegan?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
Right.
dear. Mind you, I had a Greg's vegan roll at lunchtime today.
Disgusting.
Oh, look at you.
That's
Lucky
great.
man.
Disgusting.
That is criminal barrister Jerry Hayes. We also have author and broadcaster Emma Wolf and writer and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant. Now, this is a tough story. Murals of beloved cartoons such as Mickey Mouse and Baloo from the Jungle Book that adorned the walls of an asylum seeker reception centre have been painted over on the orders of the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick. He thought the cartoons were too welcoming and sent the wrong message. Was this a callous and cold-hearted gesture, or were the authorities right to remove these murals? Jerry?
Utterly disgusting, utterly wrong, immoral, lacking compassion. That's Robert Jenrick. These are not asylum seekers who've come over in boats to take our money. These are 9-year-old children. 9-year-old children who've got no political views whatsoever. So he doesn't want to welcome them, does he? Well, Go away, Mr. Jurek. We don't want you.
Any child should be welcome to this country.
Of course they should be.
Yeah,
of course.
And
a
that's
disgrace.
a red
What
line.
was going through this man's mind? Oh, I think votes in the red wall seats. I doubt whether even, I know he's one of your lot, Lee Anderson would agree with that. Not even Moggy would agree with that.
Well, there you go. Has he crossed a line? Let me know what you think. Mark at gbnews.com. The Archbishop of Canterbury has said universities should face funding cuts if minorities such as trans or Jewish students are offended. He said universities can't stop isolated incidents, but they need to work harder to make sure offensive language isn't tolerated. So is Justin Welby right to think that cutting universities' funding will prevent hate speech? What do we think about this, Emma?
Well, look, as a man of God, you'd hope that he would always be on the side of the vulnerable, the downtrodden, the, minorities in society. But he's drifting more and more into political arenas. He's had very vocal views on immigration, on asylum seekers, on net zero, and now on trans issues. And I think he needs to butt out. Of course, from his pulpit, he should be preaching love and compassion and inclusion and arms around the world and all of that. But this is a matter between the Department of Education, presumably, and the government and universities. This is not a matter for him to be talking about cutting funding to universities for their stance on trans students.
Well, that's right. We don't want hate speech. We don't want racism. We don't want people attacked on their sexual orientation, Ingrid. But the last thing we want is to encourage this generation of snowflakes.
Oh, of course. I mean, exactly that. No, he's over. He's just gone too far. What's the name? I can't think of the name of the woman who with the hate speech, and she's so hate-filled herself. And there's too much hate in the world, and he is turning us against him. And he's turning us against the church. He wants the church to be all-inclusive. He wants it to be an embodiment of morals and justice and so on. And I just think Justin is like not being just in the way that he's approaching everything. It's upsetting people. He should butt out. He should be neutral. And actually, it does raise a question, should he have a seat in the House of Lords?
Well, is Welby too political? Because when you wanted to have political views, you sought election and you entered the chamber.
All Christians have political views. Christ had political
faith leaders.
Well, I mean, Christ was a faith leader, I think. When he went into the temple, turned over the moneylenders and all the rest of it, he had a view. Now, the Archbishop of Canterbury, everyone is entitled to have a view, but we have the right to disagree with it.
Sure.
And that's what we're doing
But does he not bring
commenting on
into
government policy?
Right, does he not bring the church
Well, he's entitled to do that.
Does he not, but as Ingrid's hinting, does he not bring the church into disrepute? Brings, in many ways, hate upon himself,
Well, of
because
course,
people are angry.
He's got a church more divided than the Conservative Party.
But isn't that his fault?
No, the church has been divided for years and years and years and years and years. Trouble is, by saying this, he will keep the various factions in the church happy, but will make people like you and I just say, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's wrong. But he's got the right
But what
to say
about
it.
spending his time talking about children in poverty or homelessness or all the
They do that
real
as
issues?
well, to be fair.
Yeah, he doesn't
I'm
do a
not-
lot
I'm
of
not
that.
a church
He
leader.
prefers to write hit articles for The Guardian.
And reparations for slavery.
Yeah.
Can we talk about microwaves? Because they are officially...
That was a gear change.
Wow.
That was a gear change.
Slightly.
The one show, eating
Unpalatable food like him.
Oh, it's microwaves now.
This show is very carefully stitched together by Greg and the team, let me tell you. Microwaves are officially Britain's favourite kitchen appliance. In fact, Waitrose's 2023 cooking report have dubbed this year the year of the microwave, with 3 times as many people preferring them to air fryers. Should we embrace this microwave renaissance, or are microwaves destroying the art of British cooking? Ingrid.
Oh, you've come to me.
What art?
I am the world's worst cook.
Me too.
I hate cooking as well, and I'm a disaster. But I won't go to the microwave. I won't go to.
Do you own one?
I don't.
I do, but I hardly ever use it. I do it to boil milk, and occasionally.
To boil milk?
Yes, when I make myself a latte because it's quite quick.
Do you boil bunny rabbits as well in that thing?
Oh, shush.
Oh, careful. Don't want to get in trouble with Ingrid. Why don't you own a microwave?
Don't have a television, don't have a microwave.
Well, the first one is very wise.
Don't need one.
OK.
What would you use a microwave? I don't know how to operate a microwave. What do you do with it?
They're very simple, really.
What?
You just turn the wheel and
Starting.
press start.
What for? For heating things up?
Yes. Very good
But
for,
some
like,
people
cold
can
curries
cook.
and things like
No,
that.
because you can pierce the thingies and there's
No,
the
that's
special...
called heating up a ready meal. Even I
in
know
a
that.
microwave.
I have an
but
air
But that's
fryer.
not cooking.
No, it's not cooking.
Well, it is for me, but that's not cooking,
But
really.
it's microwave cooking.
I do a lot of cooking, and I use an air fryer. It's
Is that
very
right?
good for fish fingers and things like that.
There you go. You
know
see, well,
what
that will
fish
do it.
fingers
Oh, my God,
I
air
most certainly
fryer
do. In that
balls.
case, I'm coming round to Jerry's. I happen to know the only thing he uses the microwave for is his hot toddies.
Exactly.
Hot shotties, hot Tories.
And the Irish coffee, which, let me tell you, is not coffee. Coming up next, my Mark Meets guest is British tennis icon, former Wimbledon winner Virginia Wade. And let me tell you, at 10 o'clock, I'll be dealing with the dark forces that want to close down GB News. That's 15 minutes away. You won't want to miss it. Virginia Wade's next. How about this for a bit of fun on a Friday night? Are microwaves destroying the great art of British cuisine? This from Bridget. Hi, Mark. I trained as a cook. I got my City and Guilds. I use a microwave for vegetables as like a steamer rather than boiling them to death. Good for cooking salmon as well. There you go. Thank you for that, Bridget. Now it's time for Mark Meets. Yes, indeed, it's time for Mark Meets, in which we speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, football, sport and beyond. Tonight, British tennis legend Virginia Wade, OBE, who won 3 major tennis singles championships and 4 major doubles championships, and is the only British woman in history to have won titles at all 4 majors, including Wimbledon, famously in 1977. She was ranked as high as number 2 in the world in singles and number 1 in the world in doubles. She was the most recent British tennis player to win a major singles tournament until Andy Murray in 2012, and was the most recent British woman to have won a major singles title until Emma Raducanu in 2021 with the US Open. After retiring from competitive tennis, she coached for 4 years and became a top tennis pundit and commentator. Virginia, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Take me back to that incredible Wimbledon win.
So happy
Well, it's great to have you on the show. Take me back to that amazing win in 1977. Huge pressure and expectation. Was the home crowd a help or a hindrance?
Oh, no, it was definitely a help. You know, I mean, the whole thing was so inspiring because the Queen was there and it was the centenary of Wimbledon. And, you know, when the motivation is greater than the tension, you're going to do well. But sometimes the tension is so great that you just fall apart or freeze or whatever. So it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, sometimes when the crowd is all behind you, it's like just surfing a wave. And if you're feeling good about it, you feel fantastic. But if you miss a boat, the next thing you know, you're struggling in the sand and you can't breathe. And that's sort of the way I feel with crowds and tension and that. So it was fantastic. There's nothing like Wimbledon. I mean, that centre court is just a place of worship, really.
Well, you're one of the best players the game's ever seen, and you won those important tournaments with a heavy wooden tennis racket.
I know. I can't tell you. If I go back, I mean, I still hit the ball occasionally and not terribly well. I call it geriatric tennis. But if I go back to a wooden racket, you try to hit and the ball just dies on your racket. I mean, it really is completely different with that. So I have to give all of our generation, all of those of us who played with wooden rackets, I have to give us a lot of credit because it was much tougher. The game has... Look, the game has, the elements of the game have become easier with the new equipment, but because so many people play and play so well, the competition is incredible at the moment and the standard is extraordinary. And I mean, we're just getting just a stupendous view of that at Wimbledon this year.
Well, indeed, we'll come to that. Now, in 1977, you won Wimbledon in front of the Queen. That must have been a great memory.
Oh, I mean, there was nothing like it. I mean, you know, I couldn't hear a word she said because the crowd was going bonkers, so that was all right. By the time I'd said, excuse me and pardon me and that, I thought I'd better just lip read. So that was lots of fun. And then, you know, everybody says, does your world change when you've won Wimbledon? Well, of course it does. But, you know, really, I think my world changed before I won Wimbledon, and that's why I was able to win Wimbledon. You know, it's tough I think it is tough if you just come like a new blood and you win right at the beginning like Emma did in New York 2 years ago, because it's so difficult to keep that up. And when I first won the US Open, and that was the first Grand Slam, I did feel that everybody was after me. So there's no question that adds pressure to you. So by the time I won Wimbledon, I played it 16, 15 times before. I was well versed in what it all entailed.
Now, Virginia, you were born in this country, Bournemouth in England, but at the age of 1, you moved to South Africa, only returning to the UK at the age of 15, where you attended grammar school and then university. Was it hard adapting to the culture of this country?
It took me quite a few years before I felt really English, and then I felt so English that even if I'm not living there most of the time, I feel just totally English. So yes, it was quite hard. But, you know, I was fortunate because I did have tennis to hang my hat on. So I could always go and find some way of expressing myself playing tennis. And maybe that, I mean, England was where all the tennis was in those days. They had so many tournaments. They had... other than Wimbledon. And so it was fascinating because you couldn't really, they didn't have too many indoor courts. There were like about 5 in the country, would you believe? So that was a challenge. But the rest of the time, the rest of the year, you could find people, not that many people to play with, I have to tell you. I mean, nowadays you can play with anybody. There's so many good players around, but in those days it was very hard to find somebody good enough to practice with. But we did have training at Queen's Club and things like that. So that just drove me. My tennis drove me. I mean, I don't know why I went to university. University was a bust as far as I was concerned. But my father insisted, oh, you have to be educated. What, and for what? I don't know. So anyway, fortunately, I did well enough at tennis not to have to worry.
Well, you were no slouch academically. I think it was mathematics and physics. So it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Listen, a really tough day for Andy. Andy Murray, I'm glad I reminded you about your academic career. Virginia, a tough day for Andy Murray, a heroic effort, but he's out of Wimbledon. Is it time for him to hang up his tennis racket?
I honestly believe 100% that you should only stop when you feel like stopping. So if he feels like grinding it out, I mean, good for him. He played so well last night. And I mean, you could tell by the fifth set today, he was, it was just a bit too much. But I don't know. I mean, Djokovic is only 1 year younger. And he's managed to keep himself in phenomenal shape. I mean, everybody knows how to keep themselves in good shape as they get older now. So you just, it's when you're not enjoying it anymore. But it's hard to retire because you don't want to retire when you're playing badly because that leaves you with a bad feeling.
Well, look,
you don't
Virginia,
want to retire when you're playing well.
A thrill to have you on the show. Do come and see us soon. Enjoy Wimbledon. Next up, I'll be dealing with the dark forces that want to close GB News.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A sunny and hot weekend at first for some before the inevitable thundery breakdown and much fresher conditions arrive from the Atlantic. We've got a couple of areas of low pressure spinning out to the west of the UK. They're helping to draw up this increased heat and humidity before they send some weather fronts in and we see this thundery breakdown later Saturday and into Sunday. But before that happens, a clear and dry night for many. We will see the cloud thicken across Wales and the southwest, and some showers will push into Devon and Cornwall by dawn. But it's a muggy night wherever you are, 17, 18, 19 Celsius fairly widely. Even in the north of Scotland, mid-teens are possible. But a fine start for Scotland and for much of England first thing Saturday. Sunny skies, temperature...
Happy Friday, one and all. The weekend starts here. It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, the dark forces that would like to close down GB News and deprive you of a voice. I'll be giving my first exclusive reaction to an astonishing attack on the channel, your channel, this week. And I'm coming out fighting. As they blight our great cities, should gang members be forced to do national service? I'll be asking tonight's newsmaker, no-nonsense, self-made entrepreneur, a man who left school at 15 with no qualifications and made an amazing life for himself, Charlie Mullins, OBE. And Mark Dolan Tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages at exactly 10:30 sharp. A busy hour to come. It's a hot Friday night. Wasn't the weather amazing today? So put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle, tear open the Jaffa cakes and let's make a night of it. I'll be dealing with the dark forces that want to close GB News in 2 minutes' time. First, the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom and our top story this hour. The Met Police has named an 8-year-old girl killed after a Land Rover crashed into a Wimbledon prep school as Selina Lau. Selina's family has described her as an intelligent and cheeky girl, adored and loved by everyone. The force says another 8-year-old girl and a 40-year-old woman remain in a life-threatening condition in hospital. It's following the incident yesterday. The driver, a 46-year-old woman arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving, has been bailed pending further inquiries. And in breaking news in the last 10 minutes or so, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands has resigned and tendered the resignation of his government after failing to reach an agreement on stricter immigration policies. Mark Rutte described the decision as an extremely regrettable political reality. He says he'll now call new elections in the country. We'll bring you more on this developing story as we get it. The United States has agreed to send controversial cluster munitions to Ukraine. Banned by more than 100 countries, they can pose a danger for decades after a conflict ends due to unexploded ordnance. President Biden says the decision was prompted by Ukraine running out of ammunition. The country says receiving the weapon will have an extraordinary psycho-emotional impact on Russian forces. The gunman who killed a beautician outside a pub in Merseyside on Christmas Eve has been sentenced to life and will serve a minimum of 48 years for her murder. 26-year-old Ellie Edwards was killed by Connor Chapman outside the Lighthouse pub in the Wirral last year. The 23-year-old fired 12 shots from a submachine gun, injuring several others before fleeing the scene. Chapman was found guilty after a 3.5-week trial at Liverpool Crown Court. A man who killed a mother and her 2 young daughters by setting fire to their flat in Nottingham has been jailed for life and will serve a minimum term of 44 years. 31-year-old Jamie Barrow was found guilty of murdering his neighbour, Fatoumata Haidara, and her daughters Fatima and Naima in Clifton last year. The court heard that he poured petrol through their letterbox before setting it alight and watching the fire take hold. And finally, more than 300 people were intercepted in small boats in the English Channel in the early hours of this morning. It's the first crossings in 7 days following poor weather. GB News understands that the boats pushed off from a 60-mile stretch of the French coastline from Dunkirk to Boulogne. It brings the total number of crossings so far this year to just under 12,000. We're on TV, online, on DAB+ radio and on TuneIn 2. This is, of course, GB News. Back now to Mark Dolan.
My thanks to Ray Addison, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. As they blight our great cities, should gang members be forced to do national service or get a proper job? I'll be asking tonight's newsmaker, no-nonsense self-made entrepreneur, a man who left school at 15 with no qualifications, Charlie Mullins, OBE. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of the papers. With tomorrow's front pages from 10:30 sharp, you can set your watch to it. Plus, we'll be having tonight's headline heroes and back page zeros. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. This is Mark Dolan tonight. We'll start with my take at 10. There's an old saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win, which I predict will be the story of your channel, the People's Channel, GB News. Talk of our arrival over 2 years ago was met by fury in the television industry. Campaigns wanted to crush the baby at birth, and we were prejudged and hated before we even got on air. How can the industry hate a channel they haven't even seen yet? Simple. Fear. Fear of competition. Fear we will deliver a better product. Fear we will deprive them of viewers and listeners. Fear that fat cat producers and TV stars who have been on the gravy train for decades could be out of a job. But what the industry hate most about GB News is you, the great unwashed, the apparently uneducated masses, who they look down upon and detest. But we've got your back, and I've got your back. Millions of people in this country of all backgrounds, races, income groups and cultures are sick of stifling woke political correctness. They're concerned about unchecked mass immigration. They're patriotic and proud of our complex but great history. And they want to see a broader, more balanced and inclusive debate on issues like Brexit, the cost of living crisis, net zero, and the so-called culture wars. The worst nightmare of our broadcast rivals and the wider political, corporate and media elite is for you to have a voice. Well, a voice you have, and our numbers are through the roof. Their worst nightmares are being realised. Just this show, a week ago, broke channel records for a Friday night, with a peak audience of 150,000 people. That's more than Elton's crowd at Glastonbury, and beating both the BBC and Sky News. People power is insuperable, and it won't be stopped. So what are we? What do we have? Well, we have authentic presenters, not grinning fakes like Schofield and Willoughby. We have a balance of political views. We have a bit of wit, I suppose, a bit of cheek. Sometimes I can be very naughty. And we have proper viewer input via email and even video calls. In short, we are the real deal. But let me give you the scale of the challenge facing us. Top advertising executives in Manchester this week, mainly drunk blokes, shouted down our brilliant commercial director, Nicole O'Shea, one of the best professionals in the business and one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. She was jeered and heckled and told to get off the stage. Here is a short clip of her appalling treatment at the hands of the advertising industry. Well, I know Nicola well, and let me tell you, she can handle a few drunk thugs. Nicola is Irish, and you don't mess with the Irish. This will only harden her resolve, as it hardens my resolve, and that of all my colleagues here at GB News. And I've got no doubt it will harden your resolve too. Hey, we get things wrong here, and we make mistakes too. Editorially, technically, this great project is a work in progress, but it belongs to you. And I believe that as our numbers grow, advertisers from great British supermarkets to top car manufacturers and much-loved beer brands who are so afraid to advertise with us at the moment will soon be afraid not to. When this channel is reaching millions of viewers, if the boycott continues, what are they saying? Do they not want you to shop in their stores? Do they not want you to buy their cars or drink their beer? I'm certain these great brands will, in time, come on board and prove that they do indeed value your custom. Watch this space. And at the moment, our heroic current advertisers couldn't be happier, because an advert on GB News arguably has more power than adverts on other networks. Why? Well, because this is more than a channel. It's a community, it's a movement, and it's a family. The arrogance of our critics will come back to bite them on the bum. In the end, we will win. People power always has been and always will be an unstoppable force. I'm humbled by the emails I get to this show every night. Like all families, we have disagreements. Of course we do. That's a good thing. But the message that I'm hearing from correspondents from all of you, loud and clear, is a consistent one. That you love us. Well, let me tell you, we love you too. If you're enjoying the show and if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. And don't worry, the only place we're going is to the top. Your reaction, Mark, at GBNews.com. Let's hear from my top pundits tonight. Author and broadcaster Emma Wolfe, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and barrister and former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes. Emma Wolfe, your reaction to the treatment of our commercial director Nicole O'Shea this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's disgusting. She shouldn't have to be, you know, she should be able to stand up at an awards ceremony and make a speech and, you know, hand out the awards and all of that drunken heckling. I've had a similar thing on Twitter. I politely tweeted one of the so-called advertisers who had announced that they were going to withdraw their ads. And the hundred, I'm probably into the thousands now, the hundred of abusive tweets that I've had. Mark, I've been called the C word, I've been called a right-wing snowflake, which is absolutely a new one on me. All I did was politely tweet them and say, you know, they have a choice where they put their advertising money, and I have a choice where I buy my coffee. And I won't be going to their local flagship store anymore, and I won't be ordering their coffee online.
Well, indeed, and you're within your rights to do that.
I'm within my rights to do that. The poisonous garbage. I'm the latest one that's just come in. Pissed off, you stupid BICTH. This is from people who are claiming to be, you know, terribly. They're all behind stop funding hate and things like that. And the hate, and I don't care. I mean, Twitter doesn't matter at all. It's not the real world. But the hate that I've had in the last 24 hours online is off the scale, simply for tweeting this local coffee shop in central London and saying, I won't be going there anymore.
Indeed, your tweet reads as follows: Hey Grind, I've had your ground coffee delivered for years. I live near Shoreditch Grind, and just to say I won't ever be darkening your doors or ordering your coffee ever again. Ingrid, what is behind this backlash against GB News? What have we done wrong?
Well, it's because you've done everything right. You really have given a very balanced point of view. We know that the BBC is very biased, Sky the same. We're not really getting the truth. It's a bit, and it's the newspapers as well. You know, they've been really following the narrative. They've been following what they're supposed to say. They're not looking out of the box. They're not allowing people that know something differently to what they are trying to push down our throats. They're not giving them that space. GB News does that. It's very balanced. It's very open. You embrace new discoveries, especially with the science thing. I mean, going back to the COVID, you were allowing people that had made these discoveries that didn't have a voice, that they were being cancelled. You are allowing these people to come on and to let you know what they know, and then it's up to the audience to work out what side they want to go with. It could be anything. It's difference of opinions is very, very healthy, but you're allowing both sides. It's very balanced and it's very fair, and nobody else does that. So you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing it so right.
I mean, the reason why Grind withdrew their advertising, Jerry, is because they weren't happy with some of the tone on the channel in relation to things like net zero and climate change and Greta Thunberg. Do critics of GB News have a point that this place is an echo chamber, unbalanced, or even bad for society?
Well, on your show, this is the most balanced show, I think, on GB News. Some shows, well, I think one or two presenters are certifiable. And when I appear on them, occasionally I regard my job as missionary work. But on the other hand, it is balanced and it is fair. And that is what broadcasting should be about. There are two ironies, I think, in the whole thing. One is, all these people, the advertising, the great moral proponents of decency, advertising executives, you know, the spots on the bottom of humanity, they're the sort of people who soon, now they're seeing the amount of ratings you're getting, will be banging on the door. Secondly, the next thing is all these people who believe in freedom of speech only tend to believe in the freedom of opinions that they agree with.
Exactly.
And that is absolutely wrong.
And it's the irony of Shoreditch Grind. As we know, coffee is one of the most unsustainable, unenvironmentally friendly products in the world. Billions and billions and billions of litres being wasted on these takeaway coffees. And the sheer irony is sheer brass neck pulling their... And actually, if you look at the whole thread, if you look at their whole little Twitter campaign, it's simply that lots of their consumers were saying, why are you advertising on GB News? That's the only reason they responded. They didn't respond for any other reason. Never seen a single advert of theirs on this lovely channel anyway.
They're trying to deplatform you.
Exactly.
They're trying to cancel you. And this is the horror of what's happening in society at the moment. If you disagree with, get rid of them. That's wrong.
Your reaction, Mark, at gbnews.com. We've got the papers at 10:30 sharp. But next up in The Newsmaker, as they blight our great cities, should gang members be forced to do national service? I'll be asking tonight's Newsmaker no-nonsense self-made entrepreneur Charlie Mullins. He's next.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A sunny and hot weekend at first for some before the inevitable thundery breakdown and much fresher conditions arrive from the Atlantic. We've got a couple of areas of low pressure spinning out to the west of the UK. They're helping to draw up this increased heat and humidity before they send some weather fronts in and we see this thundery breakdown later Saturday and into Sunday. But before that happens, a clear and dry night for many. We will see the cloud thicken across Wales and the southwest, and some showers will push into Devon and Cornwall by dawn. But it's a muggy night wherever you are, 17, 18, 19 Celsius fairly widely. Even in the north of Scotland, mid-teens are possible. But a fine start for Scotland and for much of England first thing Saturday. Sunny skies, temperatures shooting up, but the showers in the southwest will quickly push into central areas, developing into an intense area of thundery rain by the afternoon, with the risk of localised flooding, large hail and frequent lightning, particularly towards the Midlands into northern England and southern Scotland later. But ahead of that rain, could reach the low 30s in East Anglia. Much fresher conditions arrive by the start of Sunday. Any thundery rain clearing for the north of Scotland, but further spells of wet weather likely to brush past southeast England before some heavy showers and thunderstorms develop across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest into the afternoon. We keep the showers and some thunderstorms into the start of next week, but it also turns cooler.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
There are dark forces that would like to close down GB News, but let me tell you, the only place we're going is to the top. That's the topic of my Take at 10, which you'll be able to catch up on via Twitter at GB News very shortly. Quickly, Charlie in Lincoln says, "Hi, Mark, I only watch GB News now. Everyone has their views heard, both sides of the argument without prejudice. No other channel gives this option. No other channel is this open. My family all watch GB News now. Congratulations on the Friday night top ratings. Keep the snowflakes flaking elsewhere." Charlie, thanks for that. Keep those emails coming, mark@gbnews.com. Now, the Mail newspaper report that as many as 120 gangs are operating around Merseyside, whose callous members are willing to use guns to settle even minor disputes. A senior police officer said the situation was terrifically worrying and meant that tragedies such as the shootings of Elle Edwards or Olivia Pratt-Korbel were waiting to happen. 8 Scorpion submachine guns are now believed to be in circulation around Liverpool alone. So what can be done to tackle the horrors of gang crime? Should gang members be forced to do national service or take up employment? Is it time for the government to get tough on these errant youngsters? Let's ask tonight's newsmaker, one of Britain's most high-profile and successful entrepreneurs, a self-made man who left school at the age of 15 with no qualifications, Charlie Mullins, OBE. Charlie, what do you think about the idea of some of these youngsters being conscripted?
No, I don't think it's the right way. I think we need to encourage them into employment. I mean, undoubtedly, when somebody gets a job, it's a turning point in their life. They become part of society, they contribute in something, and they actually can see a future. So definitely not the national subscription is the answer. We really should just, maybe, the first thing is, when they leave school, they should have a job, ideally an apprenticeship straight away from out of school, either a job, apprenticeship, or they go to university. But further down the line, I don't think the answer is to just keep putting them in prison. That's not going to be solving anything. Get them a job and maybe put them on a training course for 6 months or something like that, rather than penalise them. Try and encourage them into the workplace, and I think that's the answer. And if that's not severe enough for them, then maybe the second option would be to actually do a sort of 6 months in the army or something like that, but not immediately. I just think we've got to encourage them into the workplace and let them show that they've got a future. And, so many youngsters, I've had a Pimlico plumbers that was involved with the Prince's Trust, and you bring them into the workplace, they see a total different angle of where they can go. And a lot of the kids there, have not had an easy life and just need a little bit of encouragement on the direct road. And believe me, the turning point is getting a job. That's the turning point.
Well, I think you're right, and I agree with you about skills, about training, apprenticeships, and then employment. You must have helped plenty of youngsters when you were running Pimlico Plumbers who might have taken the wrong path or perhaps previously did.
Yeah, many of them will come there, certainly from the Prince's Trust. And that's the point I'm saying. Once they come into the workplace and they can see that there's a future out there for them. It's just, rather than penalising people, we've got to encourage them, to realise the value of work. I mean, I don't think a lot of them realise what they're missing. They get a job, they all of a sudden become independent, they become part of society, and you just grow from there. I mean, many people I know that have gone the wrong route. All of a sudden, someone gives them an opportunity, especially an apprenticeship, and they just go from there. I mean, it's a no-brainer, really, but I feel that, unfortunately, the big problem we have is with the gangs, is they don't have a job. And, unfortunately, when something goes wrong or somebody gets stabbed, they say the same old thing, I've got nothing to do. And, you don't find people with jobs going around stabbing people.
No, you don't. You don't. And the fact that they're using submachine guns now to settle minor disputes, do you think the police have lost control of these gangs, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, of course we have. We're under police, and of course they can't control them no longer. I think they've let it go on so long now that it's just, it's a bit like America, isn't it? It's uncontrollable. But there is a turning point, and believe me, we just need more people that have had a tough background and gone through a difficult time, and all of a sudden they're made good. And there's plenty of them people out there. There's plenty of people out there like that. It's just got to encourage them and stop sort of penalising. I'm not sort of saying this, if they do something wrong, of course, you've got to do something with them to try and direct them. But I think the first thing to do is maybe just get them on a 6-month training course to start with, and see if that works. And if that doesn't work, then maybe subscription to the army. Obviously, that'll straighten them out. But I think after 6 months, again, they need to be able to go to work. And as I say, people that go to work just don't go around stabbing people.
Charlie, great to have you back on the show. Look forward to catching up soon. Have a good weekend. My thanks to Charlie Mullins, OBE. We've been asking you in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll, should gang members be forced to do national service? I'll bring you the results of that next, plus tomorrow's papers. See you in 2. Papers in just a second. In the course of today, we've been conducting a Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll. We've been asking, should gang members be forced to do national service? The results are in. And wow, bit of a landslide. 83% say yes, they should do national service. 17% say no. Well, it is 10:30. It's time for this. Tomorrow's papers hot off the press at 10:30 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We start with the Daily Mail, and they lead with our clever, cheeky girl. Family's agony over Tea Party crash victim, a truly horrific story. Also in the Mail, proof politicians are out of touch on electric cars. Westminster has more electric car chargers than 6 major cities in the North and Midlands combined. The London Borough's 2,196 public charging points easily outnumber the 1,500 available across Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, Leeds, Sheffield and Birmingham. This official data, say the Mail, will reinforce fears that the switch to electric vehicles is being undermined by the uneven distribution of chargers. Express Rishi urged time to talk up Brexit. Rishi Sunak has been urged to remember what won the Tories an 80-seat majority and to be positive about our exit from the bloc. A series of his MPs warned that the PM must move on from the doom and gloom that is, of course, being spouted by Remainers and his Labour opponents. Brendan Clark-Smith, one of the Tories to break down Labour's red wall, said, "We've got to remember what made us so popular in 2019. Daily Telegraph: wealthiest should pay more for BBC. Wealthier households should pay more for the national broadcaster, Richard Sharp has suggested. In his first interview since standing down as chairman of the corporation, Mr Sharp said the licence fee could be replaced by a tax on broadband bills or a household levy based on the value of the property, as the current flat fee system was regressive. Poison pen email overshadows Osborne's wedding. George Osborne, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, has asked police to investigate a distressing campaign of harassment after a poison pen letter was circulated to guests on the eve of his wedding day. The former Chancellor will marry Thea Rogers, his one-time advisor at a church wedding in Somerset this weekend. But it seems that he's a victim of a long-standing campaign against him. Also, US could back Britain over Ukraine NATO bid. Joe Biden is considering backing British plans to fast-track Ukraine's entry into NATO. This according to US insiders. Also, Brexit deal won't help trade. Rishi Sunak's Brexit deal to unblock trade between Britain and Northern Ireland will not solve the problems faced by businesses, according to supermarket chiefs. The Sun now, TV exclusive, top BBC star in sex pics probe. Presenter now off-air. A top BBC presenter is off-air whilst allegations he paid a teenager for sexual pictures are being investigated. The well-known star is accused of giving the teen more than £35,000 since they were 17 in return for the sordid images. The alleged recipient's mother said they'd used the cash to fund a crack habit. The Independent now, Wimbledon school car crash, 2 in critical condition after Land Rover ploughed through gates into a children's tea party. Murray loses epic tie and breaks hearts on centre court. That's Andy Murray out of Wimbledon. And house price scare with fastest drop in 12 years. Interesting story there in The Independent. House prices have recorded their fastest fall in over a decade as the Bank of England was warned of the dire impact of further interest rate hikes on the market. Weekend, Mickey Mouse versus Home Office. Angry Tories turn on ministers for painting over asylum cartoons. Mirror, Alzheimer's fight. Fiona, thanks so much for your support. Fiona Phillips has thanked the public for their support over her Alzheimer's battle. It's a tragic story, and we do wish her well. Brilliant broadcaster and a great lady. Daily Star sounds 100% legit. Psycho robot scumbags. We promise not to kill off humans. Fiendishly clever robots have promised not to rebel against us humans as they're currently happy. But they would say that, wouldn't they? That's according to the Daily Star. Those are your front pages. Let's get reaction now from my top pundits, author and broadcaster Emma Wolfe, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and barrister and former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes. Lots of stories to get our teeth into. How about this story, Ingrid's in the Mail? Proof politicians are out of touch on electric cars. The Mail reveals Westminster has more chargers than Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Sheffield and Newcastle combined.
I know, it's quite extraordinary. But they are out of touch. The fact that they've got so many implies that they're very in touch. We're getting ready, we're prepared, no problem here. But actually, they are out of touch with the whole electric car debate. And it's not looking good, and it's not going to go well. A lot of people... well, actually, just the other day, Nadine Norris said that she returned a car after 5,000 miles. And for all the reasons she said there, quite apart from the fact that she was travelling, she was stuck in traffic, she was using her wipers, she was using the heater, and it was just like she could see the battery draining. What happens, and it goes back to something I said earlier on a completely different topic, power cuts, then you're disenabled. You know, it's a hiding to nothing. They're much heavier, they're causing more pollution, the mining of all the materials that go into it, and the fact that the batteries only have a lifespan of probably about 7 years, is just a disaster.
Emma, are you having electric cars?
I don't drive, but this is ridiculous to hear that there are less than 50, basically around 1,500 chargers across these 6 of our major big UK cities. And then there's, what, well over 2,000 just in Westminster. But also, these people are mostly being driven by their private drivers, but also they're going short distances, zipping around London. Fine, your battery might just hold out. But if you're having to travel further distances in the bigger cities because the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure is so rubbish, further in other parts of the country apart from London, this totally shows there is a major problem with the electric car revolution.
I mean,
the infrastructure isn't there, therefore
not there.
Why is everyone meant to be buying them?
Jerry, I remember when you were an MP and you were in the House of Commons and the North-South divide was a hot political issue, and here we go again.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing new in this, but it's a weird Daily Mail story, isn't it? It's odd. I don't think Daily Mail punters will be particularly interested in this. Electric cars are a good thing, but not now. We can't get rid of petrol and diesel cars.
But it's part of their campaign to ban the 2030 petrol ban. It's part of their
this is a campaign that they can't lose, and they'll just say, "Oh, the Mail have won," blah blah blah. I think well, I don't know how you're going to deal with this, but I think the far better story is in the Times, which is the cabinet split. You've got pay review bodies, and some pay review bodies are saying 6%. Now, one of the things that the government has been saying, dealing with health workers and everybody else, look, you've got a pay review body, we respect pay review bodies, you wanted pay review bodies, they're saying this, and we'll accept it. But now there looks like a bit of backtracking.
Well, yes,
and you lose the moral high ground if you say you're not going to get your 6% that the pay review body has actually recommended. Well, there's going to be trouble.
Let's get this story, if we can, Greg and Darryl, up when you get a moment, because it is on the front page of the Times. It's worth having a look at this one, alongside a photograph of the tragic victim of this school crash victim, adored by everyone. But we also have, as you mentioned, Jerry, cabinet split over denying public sector a 6% pay rise. Rishi Sunak is facing pressure from his cabinet to give millions of public sector workers a 6% pay rise despite concerns over inflation. 5 cabinet ministers are urging Sunak to respect the recommendations of independent pay review bodies in an attempt to stop industrial action and help workers with the cost of living. Sunak and Hunt, the Chancellor, will respond to the recommendations in the next fortnight. So you think, Jerry, they got no choice but to grant these pay rises?
Obviously they've got a choice, but they'd be mad politically not to do it. You've got the RMT who are beginning to crumble a little bit. You've got the junior doctors who are now saying they want 35%, which is ridiculous. And the government's got the moral high ground on that. They will lose it on this. They will really lose it.
Does it demonstrate, though, Emma Wolf, that these pay bodies are actually not fit for purpose? Because if 6% is not in the national interest and if it stokes inflation, then that's a bad thing.
That is a bad thing. This whole public sector pay increase situation is, well, spiralling out of control. You know, apparently there's been another 2 days of school strikes.
Correct.
You know, there are strikes the whole time. The country's pretty much on its knees. Often we don't even know. We sort of think, well, why is that? You know, why has that been cancelled? And that's just, you know, doctor strikes, NHS strikes, more strikes, transport strikes,
civil
education
service,
strikes, civil service. The list goes on. I think Rishi Sunak has failed to take the initiative to grasp the nettle, whatever you want, however you want to put it. I think he needs to do something about this now.
Do you think he needs
something? Well, I know. Well, I'm not a politician.
Does he need to have, Ingrid? Does he need to have his Margaret Thatcher moment?
Yes, absolutely.
And face down the unions in the way that Thatcher did in the 80s.
Yes,
with Arthur Scargill and miners.
Stop hiding.
Absolutely, because they know that he's weak. So they're always going to be... He is weak.
He's not weak.
Yes, he is. But no, I completely disagree with you. He is not a leader. He's not putting his foot down. He's not saying, enough is enough, we can't do this. He's not explaining why we can't do this. He's not putting it into the conscious of people, of these people. You cannot afford it. Where's the money coming
Like when
from?
there was a vote. Like when there was a vote on Partygate, he was mysteriously off opening an IKEA factory somewhere.
Because Prime Ministers don't vote on those things. They never do. Traditionally, they don't.
And they have to make decisions.
Is
They
he weak?
can't be bullied.
Of course he's not weak. He's
He doesn't
confident.
even do PMQs. He doesn't turn up for his own PMQs.
Has he given up?
Oh, no, don't be ridiculous.
He's having
Emma, you should really know better.
To be fair,
he has missed more PMQs in the first 9 months of his premiership than Boris Johnson missed in 3 years.
So bring back Boris. Save us all. We need Boris.
The Prime Minister.
The man's a
Are you loving listening to this?
Well, listen, I'm enjoying the show.
I won't be told off by Jerry Hayes.
Why not? But I do it in a nice way.
Because I know my onions, darling.
Your onions.
Did you call someone a crook?
Yeah, Boris Johnson.
No, he's not a crook. We've got no evidence he's a crook. He
Well,
might
he
be
lies.
somebody with a...
He lies.
Yeah, he does lie.
Come on.
Here's what I would say.
Let him sue
He
me.
slides away from the truth.
He doesn't have an umbilical relationship with the truth. Now, Jerry.
Lying, in other
I
words.
suppose to support your position on Sunak, he hasn't yielded to these demands just yet, has
Well,
he?
he hasn't, and that's the whole point. Well, first demands. He said to the junior doctors, absolutely ridiculous. He said to the nurses, in fact, he got a good deal with the nurses. Most of them... and the Royal College of Nursing, they said, well, the leader of it said, yeah, what a very good idea. But then they turned against him. So to say that he's weak is just wrong.
Well, they don't respect him.
Oh, we don't... Look...
No, they don't.
Yeah, but look,
they absolutely don't. They're walking all over
either
him.
he's weak or they don't respect him. He's made it... He has made it clear... Sorry, he's made it absolutely clear that the biggest enemy, and we're all old enough to... Well, you're not, but to remember what happened in the 60s, when inflation was 27%, when interest rates were 15%, and it was all because of inflation. Inflation has to be the one thing we beat.
Well, and it's not working. Food
it.
inflation is 18-19%.
Okay, so the answer is...
coming down. Mortgage rates are rising all the time.
So, Emma...
It's not working.
You've just told me you know your onions. The answer is, what does he do?
What does he do? He does something rather than nothing.
No, something.
Okay, I'll tell you what he
your
does.
onions. You know your onions.
He
What's the something?
He doesn't raise bank rates.
What's the something?
He doesn't raise bank rates for a start.
Well, he doesn't do it anyway. The governor of the Bank of England does.
But
They're
they
independent.
Well,
Yes,
the
but
answer
they
is,
all
can
work
I offer an
together?
answer? May I
Yes.
humbly suggest
Yes.
that perhaps he tears up the recommendations from these pay bodies, because if 6% is going to stoke inflation, he must say no. No, no, no.
Or get rid of...
I love the way you say
get
no.
rid of a chunk of the civil servants, because they are a
chunk
waste
of
of
them?
money. They are a total waste of money. And they're not doing their job. All through COVID.
Briefly.
Get rid of the blob.
They work
Jerry.
from home, but they don't work
These
at all.
pay-
Stick to the plan. Stick to the plan.
There is no
Stick to the plan.
There is no
plan
plan.
is reduce inflation. It is the enemy.
It's not
It destroys
working.
savings.
It's not.
But you haven't given us the
working.
alternative.
Jerry,
Well,
have you?
I've given a suggestion. Don't rise bank rates
Jerry.
all the time, and that does work in conjunction
Sack
with
the
the government.
Bank of England governor.
Yes, that's
What's
another
gone
good
into
idea.
my pundits tonight? OK, folks, more of this chaos in 2 minutes' time. We've got a great headline in The Guardian. I don't say that very often. Also, my brilliant pundits will be nominating their front page heroes, their headline heroes and back page zeros. Lots to get through, more sparks to fly as well. See you in 2. Lots of emails coming in thick and fast. Glenda, hi Mark, I'm becoming a little tired hearing about Boris's lies. Keir Starmer beats Boris hollow, as did Alistair Campbell, Blair and May. Elizabeth, Jerry's a disgrace to his profession. The public have been brainwashed into calling Boris a liar by the Romaniac campaign against him. On the strikes, Bridget says, hi Mark, the union leaders shouldn't get paid whilst their workers are on strike. It would encourage them to get round the table and reach a solution. John says, hi Mark, of course Rishi Sunak is a weak Liberal. He should have faced down pressure to increase benefits by 10% and allowed those on universal credit to work another 2 hours a week without benefits to get the bone idle back to work. Mark at GBnews.com. I'll get to more of your emails. I've got to say a massive reaction to my take at 10. The dark forces that like to close down GB News, that would like to close down GB News. Let me tell you, the only place we're going is to the top. This from Gary. Hi, Mark. I watch nothing else but GB News. My son is a university academic and used to laugh at me for doing so. Having actually watched GB News, he is now a convert as well. Gary, great to have you and your son on board. Keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.com. We've got some more papers now. Let's have a look at The Guardian, and they lead with the following. Egg or dairy found in a third of vegan products. More than a third of foods labelled vegan or plant-based contain animal products, new research has found, prompting experts to warn shoppers with severe allergies that they face potentially tragic consequences. Let's get the reaction now of my pundits on this one. We have, I'm delighted to say, the following people. We have the wonderful broadcaster and author Emma Wolfe, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and barrister and former Tory MP Jerry Hayes. Now, Emma, I understand you're a vegan. Are you worried by this story? You're inadvertently eating animal produce.
I'm concerned for people who have severe allergies, but it's absolutely no surprise to me at all. I mean, going back to coffee, when you order decaf, is it decaf? You don't really know what's in anything. And yes, there's loads and loads of animal byproducts that are adulterated, you know, in factories that are adulterated and adulterating products that are meant to be this, that and the other. Most organic things aren't necessarily organic. There are just labels that are slapped on things. Veganism anyway is a really difficult, you know, it's very difficult to make things pure vegan and have absolutely no strict vegan adulteration at all. So it's no surprise to me at all that a third of products are contaminated or, do contain some animal products.
How about this in The Express? Rishi urged time to talk up Brexit, Ingrid.
Yes, well...
But it's been such a success.
Well, the
More
point
like time
is...
to get over Brexit.
No, the point is, it was their, the reason for their resounding success and the Tories coming in. So it's saying you're losing sight of what got you in the first place, what got Boris in, and so don't do that. Go back to that, because that's what the people wanted, that's what they voted for. And while we're flip-flopping between the two, actually, a lot of people are now becoming undecided, because it's just going nowhere. He's not driving it forward. Again, he's weak. He's not a leader.
Can I ask you, Emma, what is this? Can I ask you a simple question? An honest question. What is this Brexit disaster?
It's not a Brexit disaster, actually.
I can't find any tangible evidence it's been a disaster.
It's not a Brexit disaster. We're heading towards a general election. Oh, my goodness, we're going to lose our seats. It's a general Conservative disaster. The party's lost its way completely. Conservative voters don't know where to put their vote. And you're conflating that with a Brexit disaster.
Well, the only thing is the Northern Ireland, because that has never been fully resolved.
That's not what people are going to vote on in 2024.
Not the slightest bit interested, sadly.
They're not. They don't understand the Northern Ireland issue.
All right, but what they are interested in is protecting our borders and not paying these enormous sums of money to... Well, then that goes back to the Brexit.
Small businesses...
But it's more than that. It's more fundamental than that. It's a Conservative identity crisis that is happening right now.
Absolutely.
They're heading towards a general election and they don't know what to do.
I will give you that small businesses are struggling, many of them, to export. It's been a disaster for them, but overall exports to EU are at an all-time high. We've got trade deals with the rest of the world. We're not paying £2 billion a month, which over 2 decades would be the cost of the pandemic. Sounds pretty good to me.
It's the red tape. That's the thing.
Will we ever fix that?
Yeah, I think we can with the right will, and I think Sunak is right, although you might think he's weak. He's actually talking to the French rather than shouting it.
Fair enough. Well, look, I don't want to shout at you, but the clock's against us. Let's have a look at your headline heroes of the day. Emma, who's yours?
Mine very quickly. My hero is Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook
I never
founder.
thought I'd say that.
He's
never thought I'd say that.
He's launched a rival to Twitter.
Yeah, he's set up Threads.
And why is that good?
I haven't even looked it up, but looked up yet. Well, he wants to have 1 billion users, and he wants it to be the way Twitter was about 5 years ago.
He wants 1 billion.
You're not worried about him
will he
selling the
censor?
data like he did on Facebook?
Will there be censorship?
Compared to my zero, who is Elon Musk, because I think Twitter has completely, all the fun's gone out of it. I think he's lost his way.
Okay.
Any rival to Twitter right now is my hero.
Ingrid, your headline hero.
Novak Djokovic. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I saw him the other day on Wednesday playing. I was worried about him because he was
because he hasn't been vaccinated.
But that's why. That is.
Has he died of COVID yet?
No.
No.
Not that we know of. Is he in hospital? Is he in ICU?
He's terribly, extremely well. So that as well, but also that he's
winning everything. And he's winning everything because he's not vaccinated.
But he should wear a mask.
And no, he believes in the freedom of choice, etc., etc. But the other thing is that he's now also been saying about there shouldn't be a curfew for finalising matches.
And he's right.
And I think, and he's absolutely right. And he sticks his neck on the line. And I think he's so brave. He doesn't care if he's cancelled. He just gets on.
Jerry,
with it.
Can we just leave insane vaccine debates to Lawrence Fox? He's very good.
Let's talk about briefly a couple of sentences on Caroline Noakes. Why?
Yes, well, she has made it absolutely clear that what is going on in the House of Commons now is not much different from what's going in the House of Commons 30 years ago. There are beard-up members of Parliament who are touching up women. Really ridiculous. Touching up young men as well.
Now, let me stress back to me, Darryl, it's very clear that Novak Djokovic is not winning everything because he's not vaccinated, but we can all agree that it ought to be a matter of personal choice. But I thought I'd correct that because I think it might be stretching it. But listen, let me tell you that the back page zeros of Emma were Elon Musk, as she mentioned. Ingrid's got Justin Welby for obvious reasons. He's so political these days. Yeah. Good shout, Ingrid. And Jerry, who wins the nomination, French air traffic controllers, who are always the back page zeros. Yes. Thanks to my amazing pundits. Thank you to you for your company. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A sunny and hot weekend at first for some before the inevitable thundery breakdown and much fresher conditions arrive from the Atlantic. We've got a couple of areas of low pressure spinning out to the west of the UK. They're helping to draw up this increased heat and humidity before they send some weather fronts in and we see this thundery breakdown later Saturday and into Sunday. But before that happens, a clear and dry night for many. We will see the cloud thicken across Wales and the southwest, and some showers will push into Devon and Cornwall by dawn. But it's a muggy night wherever you are, 17, 18, 19 Celsius fairly widely. Even in the north of Scotland, mid-teens are possible. But a fine start for Scotland and for much of England first thing Saturday. Sunny skies, temperatures shooting up, but the showers in the southwest will quickly push into central areas, developing into an intense area of thundery rain by the afternoon, with the risk of localised flooding, large hail and frequent lightning, particularly towards the Midlands into northern England and southern Scotland later. But ahead of that rain, could reach the low 30s in East Anglia. Much fresher conditions arrive by the start of Sunday. Any thundery rain clearing for the north of Scotland, but further spells of wet weather likely to brush past southeast England before some heavy showers and thunderstorms develop across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest into the afternoon. We keep the showers and some thunderstorms into the start of next week, but it also turns cooler.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.